Hi, and welcome to the third tutorial in the Python tutorial series, Python, Pandas, and Spreadsheets. In this tutorial, we're going to pick up from where we left off, where we had read from a website and stored 66 tabs of baseball stats into a spreadsheet, all organized for each year. So this time we're going to figure out how to read from the spreadsheet instead of reading from the website. And this will be really helpful because a lot of times you start off with a spreadsheet that you need to read data from. So there won't be too many mysteries unraveled here. However, we're going to do a little bit of organizing in our code, and I'll explain why. Normally you'll write some code, and for instance in this case we wrote this for loop here which picked up the data from the website for us, but we don't want to run and execute that every time. Because once we have the data stored in the spreadsheet, we don't need to run it anymore. However, at the same time, we don't want to just delete it. We could just comment it out, but instead, in case we want to run it again, I'm going to store it as a definition. And so what I'm going to do is enter a little space up here and say def get data from website. Excuse me. And because we use the variables years, stats, and DFS for data frames, we need to actually pass those into the definition. So it doesn't really matter what order. Stats, years, DFS. We'll need to highlight all of this and tab it over. And in this IDE, that inserts 4 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So. And that's just part of making sure that this definition understands that everything, from this tab mark over is part of the definition. And at the end, now we need to return something. So we'll say return and stats years DFS. So what that will do for us now is it's not going to run this definition anymore. It's not going to run this code unless we call it explicitly with this line here. So we won't get those things, but we still have our variables up here, stats, years, DFS. So we have those. Now reading a spreadsheet will be much like writing one. So we're going to keep our Excel file name since that's the one that we wrote to, and we will create another definition to read. And this definition will probably seem silly, but I like to do it this way. We'll call it read Excel sheet into database. Sorry. And we need to pass into it the Excel file name and a sheet name. We have to have a colon after our definition. And our definition will just be one line. Return pd dot read underscore Excel, and we will need to pass into it the Excel file name and probably with plus dot xlsx and with the keyword sheet name equals sheet name. Okay. So, yeah, it's probably poor coding practice to do a one-line definition here. All this saves us is having to type the keyword for sheet name and having to type this .xlsx. But again, that's how I want to do it. Now we ran our previous, when we were filling our data frames list, we were filling them with what we called baseball stats 0 or baseball stats 1. That was an item from the list of data frames that we read from the website. So we're going to run a similar loop again, and we'll say for year and years. Sorry, I'm so used to hitting tab and it automatically tabs for me once you start up a for loop. Okay, for year and years we want to say baseball just to follow the convention, stats equals read Excel sheet into database, and we need the file name, so just Excel file name, and we'll say string year. Right, because each of the names of our spreadsheet come from this list of years as a string, and so that will read baseball stats into a data frame. So there's no longer a list, since we just have one data frame that we're reading explicitly from our spreadsheet of 66 times, albeit. Now we'll do the same thing we did last time, and we'll say stats year equal baseball stats. Now this time, instead of it being a list, it'll just be the data from the spreadsheet, but it's still useful nonetheless if we need to look at it. And dfs.append, and we'll say baseball stats. So now we'll have both a dictionary that's sorted out by the year and a list of data frames sorted out. That's not necessarily sorted, it's just a list of data frames. It'll be in the year order because that's the way we're reading them. And that is the way to do it. So now if we wanted to, we could put that in its own definition again so that we only call that when we want to. So maybe we'll do that. Definition, we'll call this read spreadsheet. And we're not going to get too clever about that for now, but we will copy all of this. Now we need to pass into it years, or well, we can do it in the same order we did before, I guess. Stats, years, DFS, and we'd better return those if we actually want to do anything with this. Return stats, years, DFS. Okay. And while in the spirit of all this definition writing, we might as well also make a definition for writing, because we don't need to write our spreadsheet every single time we run this code either. So we can just make a definition. We can say write spreadsheet, and we'll pass into it stats, years, DFS. We're going to tab all of this over. And we also need to pass in the Excel file name. In fact, this one only needs DFS and years. It doesn't look like it needs stats. So Excel file name, years, DFS. Read spreadsheet. We also need to pass the Excel file name. Forgive my sloppiness here. Okay, so we have a definition to read the spreadsheet. We have a definition to write the spreadsheet. We have a definition to read the Excel spreadsheet into a database, which we call in this definition. And finally, we have another definition over here to get the data from the website. So at this point, the only thing we have is, if I move these together, we have all of these definitions that don't do anything unless you call them, and then we have these 4 variables. So now we want to call some of these definitions. So we want to say read the spreadsheet. So we can highlight that, and we look and make sure, okay, we're going to read the spreadsheet. It's going to call the Excel file name, stats, years, and DFS. All these exist. So if I execute this and I look over here, then we'll be able to see if we get any errors. So let's try it out. And so far it looks like it's executing without any errors, which is great. And it's going to take it a little while because it's got to find the file. It's got to read 66 tabs. But at the end, what's going to be the problem? Well, I didn't put any variables for it to return to, so it's just going to perhaps print them to the screen here or something. It doesn't have anywhere to return my variables. So that's a real oversight on my part. What we really wanted to do was say stats years DFS equals read spreadsheet. And if we go over here and say DFS, what's it going to show us? So it does actually keep all that data, which is kind of nice. Normally when you write this in a script, it won't keep that for you. But this did. Okay. Well, anyway, if you've followed along here, we made some definitions, we organized our code, we got lucky here at the end, and we read stats years and data frames. We put them into the read spreadsheet definition. We got them out of the read spreadsheet definition here at the end. And this is what we would need if we wanted to continue using them in our script. So thank you for watching, and hopefully you will stick around for the next tutorial.